How's your sleep been lately? Your sleep, are you getting enough of it? Boy, I want to talk about that, aren't I? Well, as you know, if you've listened to the Last Central podcast or you've watched these orange slices lately, or even maybe the live streams, I've had recently a new mascot here in the studio. I call him Frederick the Fly. It's probably a different fly every time, but anyway, he's been flying around here driving me crazy, and it got me thinking about flies. So I did some research on flies, and I found something that I think that you might find interesting. It's this: do flies sleep? Around a decade back, researchers at the University of Queensland conducted a study on flies to study their ability to sleep. The study was conducted by Associate Professor Bruno van Swinderen. The study clearly stated that flies do sleep. Apart from this, the study also suggested that the sleeping cycle in flies is very similar to humans. Listen to this. This is what I found interesting. Human sleep involves two stages: rapid eye movement, REM, also known as light sleep. That's when we dream and we can remember our dreams. And then there's the non-REM stage, also known as deep sleep. Similarly, the fly sleep cycle also consists of two stages: the light sleep and the deep sleep. This study established a groundbreaking fact that even the smallest animal brains need sleep to work properly. What do you think about that? That is pretty interesting, isn't it? Let's see here. So as the day comes to an end, flies take refuge under leaves or grasses or on branches or on tree trunks. Then these flies sleep till the sun rises again. They don't have a nest, a colony, or anything. They just find a place to land and rest. This could be anywhere. Flies mostly sleep during nighttime. However, sometimes they also take short naps during the day. Sounds a lot like yours truly. Generally, flies do not search for sleeping areas that are predator free, but instead they just sleep anywhere. Flies can be found sleeping on floors, walls, curtains, plants, leaves, and so forth. Here are some interesting facts about fly sleep. Flies get most of their daily required sleep during the night, just like we do. However, they also take few short naps during the day. Number two, the sleep cycle of a fly is affected in the same way by certain drugs as it does for humans. For example, chemicals like caffeine, cocaine, and modafinil, a medicinal component that keeps humans alert, keep flies awake, while antihistamines or alcoholic beverages make them drowsy, just like humans. Flies need more sleep in hot climates than in slightly cooler climates. If flies are not allowed to sleep peacefully for a night, they'll try to sleep more the next day to make up for it. This is called sleep rebound. I do that. Don't you do that? Increased sleep deprivation in flies can even affect their memory. It's true for me. I bet it's true for you too. In another study, researchers found that baby flies need more sleep than adult flies. Baby flies require more sleep for brain development. I know that was true for my daughter. I bet it was true for your kids too. In another experiment, it was established that in flies, sleep is related to memory. Here the researchers mutated some set of genes in the flies that affected their memories. The mutated flies were called amnesiac fly mutants. The amnesiac mutants were not able to have long-term memories. Apart from that, they also had fragmented sleep, meaning that they woke up a lot during the night. So, that's interesting stuff, but really, as it relates to us, what I wanted to talk about is that when you're working on yourself, maybe there are things that you're working on as far as like recovery, or maybe just trying to get healthier in any old way. You know, you might not be somebody who identifies as having an emotional disorder, but you might be somebody who recognizes that you could be healthier, emotionally speaking. And one thing that I try to impress upon people is that you have to be wise about how you go about these things. Each thing needs to be dealt with on its own merits. Think about if you are sleep deprived. You know, a couple years back, during the last symptom fundamentals course, the live course that I held, that I hosted in person, live, had a person taking that course, somebody I'm very fond of, but who was suffering from tremendous insomnia. And my recommendation to her was, let's not worry about all this other stuff. You need to take care of the insomnia first. That we really need to focus on that. That needs to be your entire focus until you get that taken care of. Because what happens when she's trying to do all this work and do all this mental work and all this emotional sorting out and stuff like that? Well, if she's doing it without any sleep, you can see how she's working against herself. Really, her priorities and the timing of that is not in the right place. She needs to look at the situation and realize, if I take care of this thing, it will complement all of my efforts toward this other thing, right? So if you're somebody who does not get enough sleep on a regular basis, you might want to look at yourself and consider addressing that issue first. Because if you do, what's going to happen is that this is going to contribute to then your later efforts at doing other things like this emotional sorting out of things and sitting around and meditating on these deeper aspects of emotional health. You know, alcoholism is the same way, or numbing out constantly with marijuana, for example, or any other drug. When I'm talking to folks and I find out that they have a serious drinking problem, they're drinking every day, that, you know, obviously they're fitting an alcoholic pattern, or they're taking drugs every day, or they're smoking weed every day. While, you know, personally, I don't think that there's anything wrong in these things in and of themselves. If you're an alcoholic, or if you're completely dependent on these things, surely these things have to be addressed first. Think about how effective, for example, listening to the Last Symptom podcast is if you're drunk out of your mind, or if you're high out of your mind. Really, it cannot reach you and have the effect that it needs to have if you're numbed out like that and you don't have a clear mind. So that has to be addressed first, don't it? Person has to take care of that issue first. By doing so, that will contribute to the other efforts and energy that they put in toward these sorts of things that we do here in the Last Symptom. So not to get off topic there with drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, but sleep is a big one, and it kind of falls into that same thing. If you're not getting enough sleep, do you understand how this is going to affect you negatively? You're just a person like all of us, and it doesn't matter how healthy or strong we are, if we don't get enough sleep, this affects us. Why? Because we're people, right? It doesn't affect you. It might affect you slightly different, but it does affect you. So each of these things have to be dealt with on their own merits and in a logical order. It makes no sense for me whatsoever, for example, to try to completely resolve deep and profound emotional issues that I've lived with for my entire life if I'm getting by on 2 hours of sleep every day. The wise thing to do is address the sleeping situation, not getting enough sleep. Make sure that I work that out so that I'm getting completely rested, and then when I go to do that other work, it'll be much, much, much more effective. So, hope everybody's having a wonderful week. I hope you enjoy this. And how interesting, isn't that, about flies? Frederick the fly, did you hear that? We know all about your sleeping patterns now, buddy.